The Tim and Tony podcast is brought to you by Tim. Why do you use Bucked Up?
Because Tony, everybody needs a little help in their life. I found out a few years ago that I needed that extra push to actually do my workouts at the level that I wanted to be doing them at and to get the results that I wanted to out of working out. And so, one of the most frustrating things is when you're hitting the gym as hard as your body will allow you to, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. These supplements will really help you get to that next level, get to that next step, and push you to hopefully reach your goals. So that's why I use it.
Bucked Up. It tastes fantastic and it helps you work out. Get it, use it. We have a promo code, right?
We do. Promo code, very easy to remember. It's T and T20. Get 20% off your Bucked Up order. They have supplements, every single one you can think of, shirts, hats, fucking joggers, anything you could possibly want. They've got it.
TNT joggers.
TNT 20. Get 20% off your entire order today online, buckedup.com.
TANDT 20.
Tony, before we had this podcast and we received this next wonderful sponsor, we both struggled with our fashion game, specifically and especially our gym fashion game, which is an underrated part of going to the gym.
Yes.
So please tell the people how they can get more excited about going to the gym and what company they can go to buy some stuff that'll make them feel better.
So what's great is, wow, interesting. We're keeping that in. So all you got to do is go to Tidalware.com, because what you're going to find there is you're going to find some of the most comfortable and flattering, might I add, gym wear on the market. They got hoodies, they got sleeveless hoodies, they got tank tops, they got t-shirts, they got shorts, they've got compression pants, and they've got sports bras, they've got leggings, they've got all of it. It's fantastic. The quality is amazing. It's made for workouts, so they're durable, and it's just plain comfortable. So, Tim, what's that promo code?
Very easy to remember. It is TNT15. That's TANDT15. That's 15% off your entire order. You can order one thing. You can order 13 things. You can order 100 fucking things. It's 15% off the entire order at Tidal.com.
And if you want to order 100 fucking things, you do it, and you do it with the promo code TANDT15. Tim, do you care about sustainability?
I do.
Do you care about comfort?
I very much do.
Do you care about style?
A little bit.
Do you care about just looking good?
I really do. I really do care about all those things. I didn't mean to put sustainability. It feels like I put sustainability a little lower on that list than I should have. But I care about those things deeply.
And in fact, sustainability is actually one of the best parts about what I'm about to talk about. Allbirds, they make incredible shoes. They make incredible clothing. They make incredible socks. Tell us about it, Tim.
Welcome to the program, Allbirds. We're happy to have you on board.
Absolutely.
These are, no exaggeration, the most comfortable fucking shoes I've ever worn in my entire life.
And you don't have to just wear them when you're having sex.
That's right. That's right. I can't believe we just put that in an ad. They look great. They feel better, and they're good for the planet. This is a little bit different than we've done in the other ones. We're going to attach the link to go to Allbirds, where you can pick up not only a pair of shoes, a shirt. They're making joggers. They've got shorts, whatever you want. You buy anything on the store, you get a free pair of socks with it on us. If you do go to the store and buy some Allbirds, please use the link that's in the description of this podcast.
Yes, and they don't do deals like this. This is like the only one out there Like, this is the one deal. So that's what we're bringing to you guys. You should do it. Get the stuff because it's a great company and they make great stuff. So Tim, we're back.
Yep.
It's been a while. Tell the good people why we had to take a quick, week and a half?
I think it was longer than a week and a half, technically. The little behind the scenes trick that we do is we record several episodes at once.
Yeah.
And do a slow roll.
Right. Ooh, a slow roll. Bringing out the industry terms. I like it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I try to say that. And what was the other word? Content that we try to use twice a podcast.
And then bitching.
Bitching never really has come back.
Oh, it's coming. Oh, don't worry.
There's some reluctance. I feel some reluctance to that one.
I'm pushing forward.
We missed a couple weeks. Tony was taking California bar exam. I could have made a million jokes as to what he was doing there, but I chose to play it straight.
Yeah. So we're back.
Say something horrible, but yeah, we're back.
We're back. We're back with a vengeance. I've never been more motivated to get my mind off of anything remote related to that. So I'm going to start on a good note. Tim, we have the best team in the NBA right now.
By a lot.
By like a sizable Chris Paul thumb injury difference right now. Like, we have enough insurance that we're likely still going to be the 1 seed given, Devin Booker looked great yesterday. We're recording during the Pelicans Suns game right now, but Devin looked incredible yesterday, broke his career high for steals, had a season high of assists, and still at 25.
Here's the thing. Things are going almost too well here in Phoenix, and the way that you know that is that our best player is out for 4 to 6 weeks, and he played in the fucking All-Star game after getting that diagnosis. And people were actually like slamming into him with screens. And the other great part about this is that our coach was the one who fucking allowed him to do it. And
he started getting mad at Rudy Gobert for playing defense on him. And it's like, my guy, you're out there.
Yeah. So things are going so well, that hasn't even bothered me.
No.
We haven't even had a discussion about it until I just brought it up.
Yeah.
And then you realize how absurd it is when you say it out loud. But that's something that happened. And Phoenix Suns fans, who are some of the most bitter, angry.
We went through Amari Stoudemire having arthroscopic knee surgery countless times. He had a detached retina one time and lost an entire season. We have had the most weird. We got a couple guys suspended because they stepped on the court after Steve Nash was maliciously, violently, wantonly shoved into the scores table by the one Robert Horry. And I'm going to say Horry because he very much says that his name is Ori. And I'm going to go ahead and pronounce the H because he's an asshole.
I'm with you. I'm with you. But
Robert
to that point,
threw him into the freaking score table. And, we ended up losing the series because of it. So
that's the backdrop that all happened.
We've played against the Celtics in the finals. We've played against Michael Jordan in the finals. And now, Captain America himself, or really what, Captain Greece?
Well, he's the youngest. He's got to be the youngest in the top 75. Right.
I believe he is. And I don't think it's close. Because I think the only guy that's close to him is Anthony Davis.
Yeah, no, he's younger than Davis for
sure.
So we played against the youngest guy in the top 75, who the last time they did this list, the top 50, that was Shaq, ironically.
Yeah.
So
Captain Grease came in with his super soldier serum and just decided that he wanted to hit free throws, and that was our undoing. So
the two greatest players of all time, pre-LeBron, and then Giannis, who
every time we talk about this, Bill Russell was not on that Celtics team.
Oh yeah, I always forget that. I always just skips my mind. I always try to make. I'm like LeBron in that way though. I try to make our path much harder. That was the hardest finals ever won type of thing.
Like I think they still had Havlicek. Like they still had dudes. They were still a great all-time team, but Russell wasn't there still.
Yeah, and we still got fucked out of Kareem, so there's still things to be upset about.
Neil Walk, everybody. That's who we got instead of
hairiest man on earth instead of Kareem.
Right. And on that note, Elvis Monroe, please move this along and go ahead and play us in.
In a crowded room, somewhere in town.
All right, guys, we're back. So, Tim, what are we talking about today?
You know me, Tony. I'm not a big list fan. I'm not someone who obsesses over all-star votes type of guy. But we did have a momentous occasion recently.
Christmas came early for me. It really did.
Right.
Or again, however you want to look at it.
This is, I mean, it's happened before in our lives, but we were still shitting ourselves. So this is the first time that we've had, well, it did. The 50 list we were technically alive for.
What a way to describe that. What a way to describe that. We're back, baby. We're back.
We didn't have a podcast. We didn't have the ability to share thoughts, let alone wipe our own ass. So the top 75 list comes out. Mm-hmm. Really, the top 76, which, by the way, that is the dumbest. That is the stupid. How do you create a system where there's a definite amount of people that have to be in it, and you allow yourselves the possibility that we could go over that limit? That's what I don't like. That is terrible. That should. And by the way, they put 76 people on there, and they still fucking kept multiple people off that should have been on.
So okay, this is a perfect segue, because if we needed to have candidates to kick off the list to have 75, here's the two, and you know where I'm going with this, but there's two clear candidates to just no one's going to be all that upset if you're not on this list. There's ultimately going to end up being a list of about 10 guys that are going to say, oh, he was snubbed, because that's how these types of lists work. Neither of these people would be on that list because they just don't have a very big historical meaning to the game. So Damian Lillard, who's at 75, that's the easy one because he's at 75. So it was either him or who is at 76, which was Bill Sharman. So obviously you're going to just go to whoever those two are and then say one of them should have gotten kicked out. But my more creative one, for those of you that have been longtime listeners of the Tim and Tony podcast, will be very not surprised by who I'm about to say. But Russell Westbrook very much does not deserve to be even mentioned as a snub. He's not even an honorable mention for this list. He's at 68 somehow, some way.
First of all, we should note that the rankings that you're doing right now are based on the ESPN rankings of the top 76.
Yes.
They weren't actually ranked by the people who voted them in.
Yes. So
with the Westbrook thing, though, I think we should all try to forget that it ever happened in a lot of ways, because he's got this MVP that even like the year after it happened, we all knew was the wrong. I mean, as it was happening, we knew it was the wrong decision.
The minute after they announced it, I'm like, oh,
but it was
shape
confirmed.
Of water. Here we go.
Yeah, but it was confirmed in the years later. I mean, there's this Westbrook for Chris Paul trade that has gotten more ridiculous every second since it happened.
Yep.
Where the team trading Chris Paul had to throw in a pick to get Westbrook.
Wasn't that pre-vegan Chris Paul, though? To be fair,
I think no, because he had started it that offseason.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And he got to OKC and he really detailed, and it started and they were aware of it.
Got it.
But the Westbrook thing, I think we should just pretend like it never happened as best we can, because now you're seeing some of the worst takes being Jaws like a young Westbrook. And I'm sorry, I was there for young Westbrook. Ja's ability to take angles to the basket and play within a system that is conducive to winning is nothing like young Westbrook was. Not even close.
Right now is better than Russell Westbrook ever has been and ever will be. It's not
100%.
Ja Morant is a young Derrick Rose. I don't understand why the comparison hasn't been made, or if it has, I just haven't seen it. I don't know why, if you're going to compare Ja Morant to anybody in NBA history, how it would be Russell Westbrook, who has no discernible basketball skill whatsoever. He's on bad teams, stat pads, has, Steven Adams running away from rebounds so that Russell Westbrook can get his per game rebounds up so they can average a triple double and think that he's historically relevant, even though my barometer now for what's impressive in basketball is if Russell Westbrook can do it, it's now no longer impressive. So like Oscar Robertson, one of the greatest players ever. He's in the top 10, should have been. He's not great because he got triple doubles. Like triple doubles was not the medal or the thing that meant, okay, now he's great. He was great.
It was a weird season he did.
And he was great and happened to get triple doubles. Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook are two totally different things. And if you can't see that, I don't want to dismiss you. I don't want to be a whole, I can't talk basketball with you, but you're going to need to listen more than you're going to speak.
No, and the Westbrook stands have really quieted down over the last few years because there's really nothing to say.
Yeah.
Frankly, the other thing with Oscar too is that people don't like saying this, but the year he did get a triple double, it was a weird year. Offensive goaltending was still a thing.
Yeah.
They were shooting like twice as many times a game during that season than they do now, if you can believe that. So
yeah.
The thing with, I know we've got to spend a lot of time on Russ. The thing with Russ is that there's players now that I've seen their entire careers, from them being drafted to them in their twilight years, which by the way, makes me feel old as hell. But the thing that I've always noticed about Russ is that he's always been frustrating because he has the athletic gifts from God and they're evident all over the place. But I've never felt with him ever that he was one of the 2 or 3 best players on the floor in a playoff series. I've never felt like he was a franchise changing type of player. And in the last 5 years, I've actually felt like he takes away value from teams more than he adds them. So to see him on this list, and I have a couple other ones that kind of bugged me, but I had to do the research to make it bug me less.
Yeah.
Russ is the one that really is like, by the way, he wasn't at the ceremony. He was
He's good.
I believe he was at a birthday for his mom. So
great.
Good by him.
Yep.
But it would have been weird. It was weird for me seeing a couple guys up there next to like Magic and LeBron and Jordan, those guys. But seeing Russ up there was particularly jarring.
Because it's like, all right, look, you want to talk about, there's different criteria for what you vote on for these lists, right? And it's generally media people that are voting for these, and people say, oh, it's bullshit, the media.
And the top 50 got a vote.
And the top 50 got a vote. So it's, it's tough when you have these types of lists because everybody's generally going to vote for different stuff. That's why Allen Iverson is as high as he is. That's why there's certain guys that are ranked in certain spots that otherwise, if you just go on what's on paper, it's probably way different. If we're just looking at paper, Russell Westbrook's probably right where he probably should be because he's got an MVP. He's got pretty solid stats. He's been on all NBA teams. The problem is if you are so devoid of talent and in fact you have negative inertia, I'm creating phrases here. You have negative inertia, meaning you hurt and hinder your team's ability to succeed. So the point where Kevin Durant can't just go out there and score enough points to win a game. You turn the ball over so much and you take so many god-awful shots that you take the ball away from arguably one of the most unstoppable offensive forces in the history of the game. They made it to a finals. Great. That's obviously that's cool. But they blew that one series to the Warriors in historic fashion. Russell Westbrook was,
and he was bad in that finals.
Dog shit. And he was terrible in the finals. So, I mean, he has always been a player that gets in the way of progress. James Harden hated playing with him again. Now, am I going to use James Harden as the barometer for what is acceptable and not acceptable in the NBA? Absolutely not. But the point of the point is every single great player that Russ played for up until this point, because LeBron's just a different animal. So I'm sure LeBron hates playing for him, but he's not making it
now.
He's not making it that apparent in that he's just like screaming at him. Whereas all the other stars that Russ had ever played with, the relationship just never went well and never ended well.
That has to matter, right? Because every single other top 75 player that he's played with could not wait to get as far the hell away from him as they could. Yeah. And frankly, I think
Anthony Davis keeps getting hurt just to stay away from him. So
right. And by the way, this is kind of leading into my next point, where my favorite thing about talking basketball is that it's not like baseball. There is not one stat that we can boil everything down into and say, this guy's the best.
And please don't make it. Please don't.
No, and please stop trying to. So we can have discussions like this.
Yes.
The ESPN list had one specific thing that I think they were trying to piss me off with directly. Like very directly. It felt like a personal attack. Right. And I haven't seen anybody get very angry about it, but there should be. There should be.
Cheers.
The streets should be like on fire right now. Wilt Chamberlain being ranked a spot ahead of Bill Russell.
All right. Yep.
I'm serious. Somebody should be arrested.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's like what? Because his points per game were higher? Wilt was traded 3 times?
His body count was bigger. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're saying he was the 5th greatest player of all time, and yet every team he was on couldn't wait to get the hell away from him.
He got traded. He got traded. He's the only guy, to my knowledge, the only guy in the top 5 to get traded.
I think
it's insane. It's insane.
Multiple times teams that had him and knew him best were like, we're good.
Yeah.
He went up against Russell in the finals multiple times, lost. Russell was, if you go back and read anything from that time, there wasn't a debate between Wilt and Bill Russell. There just wasn't. It was over. Russell was 11-1 in the finals. He was the most important player in that era of basketball, and Wilt is above him. Why? Because he averaged 50 again in a year where there was offensive goaltending allowed, and he was 7 inches taller than everybody else.
He scored 100, man. Come on. Russell never scored 100.
That's horrendous. Like, it's seriously, terrible. I honestly, it made me throw up when I saw it. It's a lot like Wilt Chamberlain was truly the Russell Westbrook of his time in a lot of ways. Was an empty stat filling, mind-boggling, frustrating to deal with teammate.
Yeah.
Who didn't get along with anybody, whose teams never wanted him around.
So
I'm not saying he shouldn't be in the top 10. I'm saying putting him specifically ahead of Russell, who played in his era. That's crazy. That makes no sense.
So yeah, for what it's worth, number 1 on the ESPN list. Now the ESPN list was made off of who was in the top 76 pool. So then, ESPN is one of the sites that we look to be the sort of standard bearer for these types of rankings, so that's why we're using it. But they've got Jordan at 1, LeBron at 2, Kareem at 3, Magic at 4, Wilt at 5, Russell at 6, Bird 7, Duncan 8, Oscar Robertson 9, Kobe 10, and Shaq 11. And I only say that because that's a note. So I believe, assuming Oscar Robertson never got traded, that would make Wilt the only person in the top 10.
Kareem was traded.
Oh, that's right.
Kareem's traded
from the Bucks to the Lakers.
But
that's fair.
But for
that's
a different reason. It's different. Though,
yeah,
obviously.
Yeah.
Like
Wilt got traded because they were sick of his shit. Kareem got traded because he wanted the fuck out.
One of the things, this is the reason that we like to talk sports together, is that we're obsessed with understanding eras that we never watched.
Right.
One of the most important things to know about the 60s era of basketball is that the debate between Wilt and Russell that developed later did not exist back then. Everybody universally agreed it was Russell at the time, who watched the two of them play, who were around them day to day.
Yeah.
It's not like you can throw the points per game, the rebounds per game at me all you want. Bill Russell won 11 championships. Like he can't be below Wilt. I'm not saying he can't be below other guys, because again, eras are different, and winning 11 rings back then is not the same as now.
Yes.
But in the same era, you can't put two guys that played at the same time, who one was definitively better than, lower than the other. That just
it reminds me a lot of if Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, like if Brady would have retired the year that Manning did,
100%.
It reminds me very much about what those arguments would be like. Where, if you look at the numbers, like, Peyton Manning has a single season touchdown record at 55. Like,
congratulations.
If you want to suss it all out, sure. Yeah, you could pick out some stats that, by the way, Aaron Rodgers stands are more impressive than touchdown reception ratio, but we can get off that. Actual stats that actually matter. There are some that you could pick out that's like, see, Peyton Manning is this, Peyton Manning is that. But when it comes down, and people did, and it was very exhausting. And then Tom Brady went and had an entire Hall of Fame career after Peyton Manning decided to retire. So the debate is over, which is why I love making jokes about it. So all you have to do now, mind you, Bill Simmons is he started his entire career as a Boston sports fan. That's what he has done his entire career based off of. However, having read his book, The Book of Basketball, an absurd amount of times, where the cover is almost broken with how many times I've read it. I'm going to have to see if I can't get a hardcover for it. But having read it that many times, it's just clear. And then, after you read it, it's like, is it really that obvious? Yes, it's that obvious. The people that were there at the time, it's not a debate. One guy liked to look good. He specifically did not shoot free throws in a more effective way because he wanted to look cool. Did not give a shit about winning. So, okay, that's fine.
By the way, sorry, I think people are going to do this in like 30 years. They're going to be like, well, Durant averaged more points than LeBron. Like, they're going to do this. It's like, Durant averaged more points, but we who were there, we know what happened. Like, we know who is the best. Like, you can't just throw raw stats to me. That's not how this sport works.
No,
it's this isn't fucking baseball. It's not fucking tennis.
Yeah,
like,
we don't have war, and again, we don't want it.
Raw individual stats, they don't mean nothing, but at the end of the day, like, there's other factors that go into this.
Right.
And in basketball, more than I think any other sport, where one guy has more of an impact than any other one person on team sports, 11 rings matters during the same period. So
do you have any other Wilt Russell stuff? Because I've got a lot more notes.
I don't. I
just going through the list,
like fucking aneurysms.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that happens when you make these types of lists, because invariably the writers that are working on this list obviously were not around during that time. So then what we do is, since, I would imagine 10 ESPN writers probably got together and they were tasked in a very short window. Hey, make this list. I need it on my desk by Thursday at noon. So then they just quickly check out the Wikipedia pages for all the top 76. And then they just kind of throw it together. And then they think that since there's 9 other people also, if they have generally the same list, they're just going to feel good. It's groupthink. And then they just kind of send it out. So the problem with these types of lists is this right here. That problem, that issue, that historical inaccuracy that people like you and I are going to care a lot about, because these lists are how we record sports history. The books, like Bill Simmons's book of basketball, that's how we remember history, because that's how people like me can go back and understand what actually was happening. So then, because I wasn't there. However, I can tell everybody with a microphone that Russell Westbrook is probably the most overrated human being in the sport of basketball. But I will get off of that, because the next topic that I wanted to talk about is something that it excites me that this man is on the list, that this man was this high on the list. And that is Steve Nash, the person that I grew up watching my entire life. In my childhood, Steve Nash. He's at 37, and it seems right. What's funny though is that it appears as though Steve Nash is the one person that's this high on the list that is just incapable of playing defense. And so it really brings out how impressive he was as an offensive player, because I was looking through the list and I'm like, man, really nobody else in like the top 40 was that bad at defense. And so it's really cool to see the guy that I grew up watching, and the rep on those teams were always incredible offenses. But, this play style can't win, when it was really just the fact that we couldn't play defense. It was never the play style. It was the talent that we had, where, Raja Bell isn't going to play defense for all 5 people. It's just not going to happen.
100%. And, the Nash thing, as time goes by, people forget. I think we had a brief moment, because when Kobe tragically passed, we were like, he won 1 MVP. Like, how did that happen? And you go back, Nash won 2 MVPs during 2 of Kobe's best statistical season.
Yep.
And that's because, and by the way, this isn't as biased as you may think that we are. This isn't a Westbrook situation. Like, people look back on it as like, yeah, that's who was the MVP that year.
Yeah.
Because Nash orchestrated what was then the most electric offense that the NBA had seen outside of maybe Showtime Lakers and Shaq and Kobe.
Well, and ironically enough, the Kevin Johnson sons, the Kevin Johnson, Charles Barkley sons that played against the Bulls. Like, the 7 seconds or less sons were like showing fire to cavemen. It was like, we didn't know we could do this. This is amazing. This is so much fun to watch.
It's the blueprint for modern basketball. It's what everybody took and put on steroids and meth. And now we have what we have now. And Nash, as an orchestrator of that, obviously we cared more about that then than we do now. I mean, he averaged 15 points per game and 18 points per game in his 2 MVP seasons. I don't think that's happening again necessarily, the way modern basketball is played with high usage rates.
Yeah.
But back then, compared to the other guys that were there, Nash was the thing that made this offense go. And in the league at that time, it was the most dominant unit on one side of the ball. So,
well, and not for nothing, I mean, Steve Kerr was involved with those Suns. And then Steve Kerr is obviously the head coach of the Warriors. And so
he stole it.
It's very interesting to see how it's a different franchise, but they essentially run the same type of program, but they have the greatest shooter ever, They have arguably the second greatest shooter ever. And then they had this complete athletic anomaly in Kevin Durant for a couple of years, and obviously couldn't. I think there was a stat with Durant on the team. They lost something like a total of 30 something games the entire time he was there, which is just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's with Durant playing. That's how many games they lost. It was something like that. So yeah, the Nash thing, it's tough because this is the flip side to that coin in basketball, where championships I think matter more than in any other sport. Yeah. In terms of deciding an individual player's value. They missed it a couple times. By the way, in every single time that they missed it, there was some weird thing that happened to them along the way.
I've got some what if questions at the end. We'll get into it.
I think it's funny. I think one ring for him would raise him up this ranking list more than anybody else, including Barkley.
So then we'll just get into it, because I have noted Nash probably slots in at the 29 slot. He probably shifts everyone between 37 and 29 up one. 29 is Chris Paul. He probably, with one ring, doesn't go above Isaiah, who I believe is 27. But with the back-to-back MVPs in Kobe's, essentially at the end of Kobe's prime, Nash is probably at that 29. But that stretch that we have currently from 29 to 34 shows how hard these lists are. Because from 29 to 34, we have Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Allen Iverson, Scottie Pippen, Kawhi Leonard, and Bob Cousy. It is so, talk about a list of completely different people playing in all sorts of different eras and having such different careers and different reasons why they were great. You've got Wade with 3 rings. You got Chris Paul with 0. You got Iverson with 0. You've got Pippen with 6, but wasn't ever the best player on the team. You got Kawhi with 2 Finals MVPs, one against LeBron. Or 2 against LeBron. No, 1 against LeBron, 1 against the Warriors. The skeleton of the Warriors at that point. And then you've got Bob Cousy from, the 1800s. So the difficulty in listing all these players, and I would say on the whole, ESPN actually did a pretty good job. They actually did a decent job given the totality of the circumstances with everything that they had to put together. It's pretty good, but these stretches show how hard these lists are, because they just have completely different careers. I saw you wince a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. There's one thing that really bugs me about this one is that
okay.
Stockton is over Chris Paul and Nash in this list by a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
I wasn't alive for it. I've only gone back and read what people said about him back then. First of all, forget now, because he's a weird ass now.
Yeah, now we've got people making jokes that the Cleveland, the Quicken Loans Arena must be too close to an elementary school, and that's why Karl Malone wasn't able to show up.
Yeah, no, that's the Jazz of the late 90s had all kinds of problems. Karl Malone, John Stockton. Stockton's an anti-vax advocate now. There's all kinds of things.
Which, by the way, if I could just say, it really is appropriate that the 2 stars of the Utah Jazz are Karl Malone and John Stockton with what we know about them today. It's very almost too fitting. Oh, come on. Really? Okay.
Yeah, it is the Stockton stuff. First of all, no MVPs. Never won a finals, just like Nash.
Yeah.
You go back and read the things that were written about him. He was never the orchestrator of a unit like that. But by the way, people still talk about the 7 seconds or less Suns. We've all just tried to forget that the Jazz ever happened, except for occasionally when we see the Jordan highlights. We're like, oh yeah, that was against them.
He hit the shot. Oh wow, okay, that was cool.
Not a part of a historic team. Was the benefactor of another better greater player who was able to actually pad his stats.
Yeah.
Most people, even then, were writing Stockton's gift is being able to pass it into Malone. So him being over Nash and CP actually really rubs me
and
the wrong
that
way.
much over them, and pretty significantly over them.
Yeah, that
it
does rub me the wrong way.
It's one of those things that's like, oh yeah, because all we ever do is say how insane the 90s were because Michael Jordan was playing them. So if you were close to the Jordan era, you're just gonna be held up a little bit because we have to, because that's what the writers, the old head writers now grew up watching. And so, they're growing up in the 80s. So when they're teenagers, they're like, oh yeah, Michael Jordan is this godlike figure. And, they're not necessarily wrong, but then the reaction is that all those who he hit down, they now get elevated because they were in such close proximity to Jordan. And it's bullshit. It's just pure unadulterated bullshit, because there's guys on this list that are lower that just should be higher. Scottie Pippen should be higher than Karl Malone. He just should be. He just
sorry.
should be.
I blacked out when I read that one. I apologize.
Yeah, no, he should be. Dwayne Wade, he should be. Like there's certain guys that just should be higher that aren't. And then the Dwayne Wade people, you want to say, oh, LeBron won 2 rings. Okay. 2 things. 1, you clearly don't know about 2006. That's 1. And then 2, you didn't watch those Heat teams. That's just what that means. And that's fine. But that just means you didn't watch. You needed to watch because he was incredible. He was incredible. And his play style didn't lend itself to him playing at that level for that long. And he did.
And the 2006 Heat, I think, whenever people go back to what's the worst team to ever win a finals, people almost reflexively say the 2006 Heat. The thing is, again, having watched those games, actually having gone back and watched them fairly recently, because this came up on a podcast I was listening to recently.
Yeah.
Saying they're the worst of the finals teams is in and of itself kind of a hilarious argument to make. But those teams weren't, I don't think they were as bad as we remember. Yes, they got some weird shit with the refs towards the end, but at the end of the day, they were better than that Mavs team. They're better than the Mavs team. They were better than that Mavs team. It's a fact.
Mark Cuban was ready to burn down the entire arena.
Mark Cuban's coming to my house right now to come and find me.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, no, he's coming to my house to beat the shit out of me just for saying it.
Has he put radio on the internet yet?
Yeah, I think he put TV on the internet. He's part of the Billionaires Boys Club, buddy. Mark Cuban, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, hey, I've got a pitch for you. Let me get in the tank. So we've got Charles Barkley on there at 22. He's the highest quote unquote Suns player on there, which it's interesting. I don't want to say he's overrated. I don't want to, but it feels like it.
Do you think that his ranking has been increased by how much people love him on TV?
I think what's interesting
his historical
about
standing.
Him, I think what's interesting about him is he's the only person that, because he doesn't have a ring, he's actually now overrated because he's on television getting shit on by Shaq every single day that they're on the TV. Every single day that they're on the TV.
People love him.
They do. But my point is that because they love him and because Shaq gives him so much shit about not having rings, people now don't want to seem like they're underrating him because of the ring thing, because it seems stupid. So now we're to the point where, well, we got to give him his flowers. We're really putting him above guys like Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Allen Iverson, Scottie Pippen, David Robinson, Kawhi Leonard, Bob Cousy, etc.
Is he above Havlicek? Did I block that? Did I make that up?
I believe so. I'll get research.
Okay, yeah, he is. I just got it.
Okay.
He's above Havlicek.
It's weird. It's really weird.
People remember a lot of him so fondly. Like What's so funny is that with some players, we're willing to pull the accordion out, right, and look at the totality of their careers, and others were only willing to look at their peaks.
Yeah.
With Barkley, it's like the only season he ever played was the 93-94 season. Like there was nothing, like people forget him being fat on the Rockets after. They forget his early stuff and being a pain in the ass to work with. All they remember is, hey, look at these rebound numbers in his MVP season. And there was nothing else. And now he's on TV.
Which, by the way, a very impressive season. He was a 6'4" power forward. Like, no, it is impressive.
Sorry,
but to put him at 22? 22. He's above Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, the Isaiah thing. People hate Isaiah, though.
They hate Isaiah.
People hate Isaiah. And by the way, it's only gotten worse with our generation because he does not come off well at all.
No.
In the Last Dance doc. I mean,
and because the only real exposure that you and I have to him is, he was the exec of the Knicks when they had Steve Francis and Stephon Marbury. And boy, did that not go well at all. It went terribly. And then they fired his ass and he was disgraced.
And now he's just a TikTok audio where he's like, I had the criteria. Like it's, or the image of him walking off the court is now the one that I think most people our age would point to as the lasting image of Isaiah. Yeah. The fact is, I mean, that team wins 2 rings. He's not only the best player on that team, he's so much better than everybody else. Like, to be honest, I had trouble coming up with another finals team. You'd have to probably go back to like the 60s or something, which is a little difficult to do, where the best player was that much better than the second option on his team.
The thing about Isaiah, though, is that there's not. So, like when you say the name Magic Johnson, when you say the name Tim Duncan, there's certain plays that you think of. There's certain highlights that you can think back to. Isaiah doesn't really have it.
No,
because they just went out and fucking won. Like they didn't have a lot of buzzer beaters. They didn't have a lot of that kind of stuff because they just went and shut shit down. The bad boys were really good. They made Michael Jordan completely change his entire body physiology. They went and made him get in the gym and gain like 30 pounds. Like that, Michael Jordan, that guy, that Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan. They had the Jordan rules. Isaiah Thomas is the best player on a team that Michael Jordan physically and mentally could not get past.
On a team, and by the way, this has been well covered. But most people who played with or at the same time as Isaiah, so the guy could have averaged 30 a game if he wanted to.
Yeah.
There's no question he could average 30 a game. He was that gifted. But he realized that in order to keep this team that was a defensive juggernaut, what it was, which is we need to play better defense than everybody because we don't have the offensive talent. He knew that he had to get those other guys involved. Guy averaged 9.3 assists per game for his entire career. That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Especially for the number one scoring option on your team to average over 9 assists per game is insane. So I think Barkley being over Isaiah might be the one that hurts more than Havlicek to me.
Because Isaiah is the most complete point guard that the NBA has ever seen.
Yeah, he's the one that we compared all point guards to before Chris Paul, basically.
He is the most complete in that he was a defensive just juggernaut. He was what Gary Payton thought he was. And he actually won back-to-back rings, actually put together a career that is all time. There are no holes. The only holes is that Michael Jordan hated him. The only hole is that he was a dick and wasn't on the dream team. Christian Laettner was on the dream team, but Isaiah Thomas was not. And it was because Christian Laettner was at the time the best college player. Sure, whatever. I'm not here to slander Christian Laettner. Did not have a good NFL. Well, he didn't have a great NFL career. He more importantly did not have that great of an NBA career. Had a great college career. The most notable thing that's happened to him this decade is the I Hate Christian Laettner 30 for 30, which was very entertaining. but
One of the better ones.
he was on the dream team and Isaiah Thomas wasn't. Now, did they need Isaiah Thomas? Obviously not. But those things, like what we were talking about before, are one of the sort of benchmarks that we use to write down history. And he's just not there because he was too much of a dick. And Chuck Daly was the coach. It's crazy.
And I think Isaiah, he's had a weird post-playing career.
Yeah.
He's said some weird shit since he's been done. Nowhere near as weird, by the way, as Scottie Pippen. But Isaiah,
By the book, everybody.
Scotty's on like a whole other level. But Isaiah, he's basically come out he's and said the reason people hate me is because I was the villain to Batman, basically.
Yeah.
Scotty's Robin and I was the Joker. I was like, did he quote unquote stop Jordan when he was younger? Okay. Like, let's not get carried away and say that he was doing it to him his whole career. But there is some truth to that, because this is what happened, in my opinion, a little bit to Steph, where he became the villain to who is this generation's favorite and best player. He's, by the way, that's
definitely in Cleveland. Definitely in Cleveland. We got to hear the booze in Cleveland.
I enjoyed that. And I actually have that's actually a great transition, because this is the thing that's been getting on me. There's been this take. First of all, the whole thing that, Jordan was the last person that came out. You're not getting Michael Jordan to show up unless he's the last person out. LeBron's going to be there anyway.
Michael Jordan was in Daytona. Was at the Daytona 500 that morning. They didn't even know if he was showing up. And he flew the jet in. Now, obviously, Daytona and Cleveland are in the same fucking state. Michael Jordan's a billionaire. I imagine he has a jet, or at a minimum access to a jet. It wasn't really all that difficult for the man to get there for the ceremony. But yeah, of course, Michael Jordan's going to be out there, because if you like, LeBron's career isn't over. And this is a list that's about the 75 years of the NBA. Yeah, of course, Michael Jordan's coming out last.
I don't even think that's like, I'm not, I don't want to do the LeBron Jordan debate on this one, but the shit that has been made out of him coming out last, it's like, yeah, he wasn't coming if he wasn't going to be last. If he was second and LeBron was last, even in Cleveland, he's not going to be there. And by the way, without him there, it's not the same type of event.
No.
Number two, and this is the most important part, the obsession over him getting louder cheers when he came out than LeBron in Cleveland. I just, guys, the average ticket price for the All-Star game, I looked this up. The lowest right before game time was $2,400. The average was somewhere around $1,800. There were tickets going for $20,000. Yeah. Who the fuck do you think is at this game? Do you think it's like regular people in Ohio? Do you think this is like doing a straw poll of people in Cleveland? What are you serious? Like, Jay-Z was at this game. Like,
right.
This is like, if this was a regular season Cleveland game.
Adele and Adele's boyfriend were there. Come on.
Right. Like, that obsession with him getting a louder ovation is insane to me.
Yeah.
It's not, I would venture to guess there was less than 10% people at that game that even live in Ohio. For starters,
I would say there might have been, I would say the amount of workers that were there, that
just
obviously all
Ohio, yeah.
I would say there were probably more workers from Ohio than there were attendees from Ohio.
100%. And it's just what these events have become. It's the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The NBA All-Star Game is basically the Super Bowl. It's a one-game event that is made for millionaires.
Yeah.
It's, by the way, crowds at All-Star games notoriously suck because it's just a bunch of rich people sitting there watching basketball games.
It's a corporate event. It's a networking event
that nobody really gives a fuck about.
Yeah.
Like, it's so stop.
Like, okay, Spike Lee was there. That was cool.
We can Jordan LeBron thing. I have no problem with that. Not right now, but we can talk about it. He got cheered louder in Cleveland, a place that he used to annihilate than LeBron did. What does that mean? Stop. You're not paying attention. By the way, you're kind of showing how disconnected you are from like average normal people when you say shit like that.
And I think all of the debates need to be over until LeBron retires.
I wish they were. I wish we'd give it time, but we don't do it.
Because, like, here's the thing. I've come on this podcast. Everybody knows I'm a huge LeBron fan. But I've also said, right now, Jordan's career is over. LeBron isn't. Yeah, Jordan's number one. Like, it's not like, okay, we can revisit it after he retires. LeBron's going to have the most points scored in the National Basketball Association ever. So, like, but it hasn't happened yet, but it will. So are we going to talk about what could happen? Or are we going to talk about what has already happened? It's a dumb argument. Let's wait. Let's just wait until he retires.
100%. You're trying to write the history of a war while a battle is going on.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow, and by the way, I'm not wishing this on anybody, obviously. If LeBron gets like some horrific injury tomorrow and doesn't play for a year, that would change this whole conversation, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Of course it would. Of course it would.
If somehow
the Lakers come back and win the championship this year, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people who have anything to say against him being the best.
Yeah.
So you've got to give these things time. Right now, it's a fun debate because there's no right answer, I think, at this point. I think that you can make arguments on either side, and that's what makes it fun. But as far as like people doing the whole, if you think this, you're dumb thing, we're not at that point yet.
But for those of us that are actually intellectually invested into the history of the NBA, because the NBA, as far as sports goes, I am most interested in the NBA in a history sense, I can watch any game that's going on sense. I find the game more interesting because it's just the history of it's so fun because there's less guys in the league. There's very distinct eras that
driven.
It's personality driven. And it's just a fun game to be around. And that brings us actually to a really cool part of this list. And that's these guys that are titans of their eras, but are right in the middle of their careers. And Giannis not even at the middle of his career yet. So Giannis is at 18, right above Dirk, or right below Dirk, which for right now makes perfect sense. And then at 16 is Steph. Having Steph and Giannis at 16 and 18 respectively is actually perfect. It's not an overreaction. And it's not an underreaction. We're not.
If they were in the top 10, that would have been great. If you put Steph 10th right now, like some people are saying, that's terrible. Don't insult me. That
I think so. We've got Moses Malone at 15 and Julius Erving at 14. If you put Steph at 14 over those two guys, okay, I would disagree with you, but it's reasonable because he's the greatest shooter of all time. And already has the most threes ever. And it will not be close. 13 is Hakeem, 12 Durant, 11 Shaq, and then the top 10.
Which
he should not be. Go ahead.
Sorry, I recoiled a little bit at the Durant being in the 12 spot. But then when you look who's over him, it's like, who are you taking out?
It's perfect.
Like it's the classic all NBA snub thing. It's like, okay, well, then who are you taking out?
Yeah, who are you taking out? Like, are you actually going to take out Dwight Howard at center, or are you dumb? Because he is the best center in the NBA and was for a long time. And don't worry, Dwight Howard, I have a segment for you. So, like, Steph is perfect there. And by the way, I hate him. As a ardent LeBron fan, I'm a Suns fan first. Everybody relax. I was rooting 1,000, and Tim can attest, as much as he would love to say that I was not loyal to the Suns during that playoff run. I was 1,000% pro Suns the entire time. Everybody relax. But as pro LeBron as I am, I hate Steph. Steph is exactly where he should be in that range because he is one of already the most important, impactful people that has been in the National Basketball Association, but his career's not over. It's just not. And 16 for a top 75 list of all time It's perfect. And Giannis, he's a super soldier. He's gonna end up higher.
He's a freak.
He's gonna end up higher. He's likely going to be he'll probably get in the Moses, Julius Erving, Hakeem, Durant range because he's just that good.
Yeah. And this is what I was talking about with the one season. In the middle of last year's playoffs, there were people seriously going on TV, not just Kendrick Perkins. I'm talking like serious people who were going on television and saying Giannis isn't a one. That was a real conversation. Like, I think if we did this list a year ago before the Bucks won, I think there'd be people seriously saying he doesn't belong in the top 75 at all. And so this is my point with the one season thing. So much can change in a year. Just go year by year. Trying to go like in the middle of a season and do the LeBron Jordan debate. It's an absurdity. It's ridiculous to even try to do.
History is being written. Don't try to write it already.
It's currently being written. And by the way, I agree with Giannis being here. Would I have said that a year ago? No, but that's because he went out and had one of the best playoff runs we've ever seen. Like,
but that's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of it, is that we have now a story from the first year of the NBA to the 75th. Last year counts. And last year, as you and I can attest, as we watched every waking second of that NBA Finals, the dude was Thanos. He was inevitable. Like, he was bad at one thing and then did it well for one game, and we couldn't keep up because we didn't have it. And we can discuss the million reasons why we didn't have it, but we just didn't have it.
It just, playing against him when he was that dialed in.
Yeah.
Because the first two games he really wasn't as healthy, I think, as he was later on. But when he was dialed in,
he hyperextended the shit out of his leg and still did that.
Right. But the last four games honestly felt like some 2013 LeBron shit. It just did. Yeah. Like, again, I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying in the moment, it felt like doesn't matter what you do. And that's how it felt with him when he got that dialed in. Back then, it was like, there's nothing we can do. It was the most helpless I've ever felt watching a sporting event at that high level.
So going along the theme of where the current guys stack up with the historical greats, Durant at 12, it makes sense. Him and Kareem are probably the two most unguardable shots in NBA history, because you've got Kevin Durant who could just dribble. He can pull up and shoot from anywhere, and he's 7'1". You can't, like, there's no defender that is going to be able to extend to the 3-point line like that confidently and actually be able to guard him that's at a comparable size. Like, the one dude who can there's a handful of dudes that can play defense on Durant at that range and still be able to confidently guard him when he gets to the paint. That would be healthy, actually in the arena, clocked in Kawhi. You got Giannis, LeBron, Scottie Pippen. I don't know if there's anybody else. And I might have even said too many people. Like, Kevin Durant it's perfect at 12 because, again, his career's not over, and this is a story of the 75 years. And so, he has been a wrecking ball.
12 makes sense. I initially recoiled at it because this is what we do, right? When we talk about people, I think I reflexively just started saying KD's a top 10 player of all time. There's no debate about it. But then when you actually go through and do the list, it's like, well, okay. Like, who are you taking out? Yeah. Because you have in a top 10, I think it's really important to, it's tough to judge era by era. Obviously, if KD ever played against Wilt, he would score 150 points. If you just dropped Kevin Durant into 1962,
they would have thrown him to the bottom of a lake with a center block attached to his ankle and told him to float back to the surface because he's a witch.
100%.
Like, if he shows up and just starts,
they would have thought he was an alien
and starts breaking dudes' ankles at 7 feet tall. Are you kidding me? Like, Kevin Durant would be the most, like, I don't know what this is. This is an alien drop down. Like, same with Giannis, Same with a lot of these guys now that
most of the guys now.
Yeah, it's just insane.
Like it's the whole if Eddie House played in the 60s, we would be still talking about him type thing.
Yeah.
But with Durant, Durant is by far, I think, the most interesting person to me on this list, because the way the top 10 for me is set up is how did these guys compare to people they played against in their eras, and how much better were they than the people they played against? Kevin Durant is the second best player in this era.
Yeah.
I feel pretty comfortable saying that. Yes, he played at the same time as Kobe Bryant. I think he's actually a better basketball player. Will his stats at the end of the day accumulate to the point where we can put him over Kobe on this list? I don't know. But he is very much clearly been the second most important player of the last 15 years. And it's not even really up for debate to me. And yes, that includes Kobe.
Here's the difference, though. If this is just a top 75 list of talent, Anthony Davis, Anthony Davis would be top 20 easy. But it has to do with what your career was, what your legacy was, what the impact on the game was. It's an all-encompassing list. It's, can you be removed from, if we were telling a story of the history of the NBA, does your name have to come up? And how many times does your name have to come up?
And ironically, impact is something that raises Steph's ranking, and I think decreases Kevin's. Because Steph's impact is so much greater than Kevin Durant.
And by the way, we don't even really understand what his impact is, because we are still in it. We are still in the time that the NBA is changing in the way that the NFL changed post their rule changes. Was that 2010?
Yeah.
So like
around 2010, 2011 is kind of the demarcation point.
The NBA now, Steve Nash would be shooting 12 threes a game. Like, and he said as such. He said in multiple interviews, the one regret that I have in my career is I should have shot like twice more than what I did. Like, but it's just completely different. The hand check rules changed. And then Daryl Morey came in, and other people from the Sloan Conference came in and said, hey guys, here's some math for you.
Steph was at the forefront of that.
And he was perfectly set up because he had Steve Kerr, he had Klay Thompson, and he had Nash in the building saying, Steph, shoot. We don't care where from. We don't care what the circumstances are. We want you personally to throw the ball towards the hoop as many times a game as humanly possible, because that's going to be the best scenario that we win as many games as possible. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is Shaq and Kobe are right next to each other in this list. It makes sense. Kobe's one spot higher than Shaq, which I'm
sure you
can
argue the Oscar thing.
So, okay. You
can argue the Oscar thing.
So Oscar is the only guy that's in the top 10 that I am okay with you having him not in the top 10 on the list.
And it's important to note that Magic, who is ranked ahead of him, has said Kobe's the greatest Laker. So
yes,
that is something.
And when you have Magic saying he's the greatest Laker, or that Kobe's the greatest Laker ever, of the top 10, we've got LeBron, who played for the Lakers, which that's different, but he's a Laker, won a championship with them. You got Kareem, you got Magic. Like, you've got a lot of this list is Lakers, and you got Kobe, and then you got Shaq. So of the top 11, there's 5 Lakers. That's crazy. And you're saying that Kobe
and Jordan.
The rest of it is, or not the rest of it, but if you're saying that among all of those guys, Kobe's the best Laker, which obviously that's a different criteria of what Magic is saying, but Kobe is a top 10 guy. He is who I hated with a fiery passion my entire childhood, because he was one of the things that kept getting in the way of the Suns. Obviously,
I think he might be ranked too low. I think he might be ranked too low.
He might be. He might be because he probably should be ahead of Oscar. He probably should be ahead of Duncan.
The Duncan thing's where it gets weird for me.
I'm not comfortable putting him above Bird. He's not above Russell. I'd be okay with putting him above Wilt. I would be like, if Wilt was 8, I'd be like, okay, I'm not. I'm not
Wilt
going
was
to be
lower than that. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten a lot of pushback from me.
We probably
It would have been controversial.
Yeah.
But if he was like 12th, I don't think I would have said anything. Like if he was at 15, I would have. If he was at like 15, I would have had to be like, okay,
If he
there
was
needs to be
outside-
some education.
If he was outside the top 10, I'd be like, all right, I think this is funny. I love the bit, guys.
Yeah,
That's wrong. But I appreciate the commitment to the bit because I'm one of the people that's in that bit. So thank you.
Yeah.
But okay, now let's remind ourselves how great he really was. But yeah, Wilt at 5 is just a little much. Him and Oscar, I think, are misplaced because we wanted to make sure that we got certain people into certain portions of this list, say the top 10. But I understand.
I again, this isn't something I'm really taking a ton of time in like the 20s
Right.
or the 30s or the 40s. But once we start getting to the top 12,
Yeah.
I think it matters.
Yeah.
I think one spot matters, and I think Kobe's at least one spot too low, maybe 2.
But the fact that he's in the top 10 means that they did what they needed to do to get him to a spot that he should be. Because here's the thing. If Shaq worked out,
Yeah,
like
just ate right, like moderately right.
if he dieted during the season, not off season, just during the season, Shaq is probably 3. Shaq is
Yeah.
probably the greatest non-Jordan LeBron. It's probably a 3-tiered thing. It's probably you got Jordan LeBron, then you got Shaq, and then you have all the mortal human beings.
And truly, that's what drove Kobe crazy about him.
Yes.
Is that it was like, this guy works out 10% as hard as I do.
Yeah.
And he's still more dominant, by the way, at the time.
Yep. Yep.
Like Shaq is in the what the fuck do you do with this guy in a way that only LeBron and Jordan are.
And he's
At
above
his peak.
Durant. And it's
I-
probably
well,
where
I
he
mean,
should be.
At the end of it, will he be there? I don't know. Again, it's still being written. Hard to project. But for now,
If Harden keeps deciding to have the teammates that he has, 12 is probably his ceiling.
I think I could do a pod on what I project Durant's future to be.
And
Because I think
maybe we will.
I think what's similar between him and Shaq is that they're both their own worst enemies for different reasons.
Oh,
I don't think that either of them can get out of their own way. Shaq wanted to make movies and eat like shit. Okay.
you're not wrong.
Durant has poor taste in human beings and has a weird
I would say poor taste in career art
partners
and work colleagues, coworkers.
Yeah. And has one of the most frustrating personalities in the league.
Can
just
yes.
He's frankly, I don't understand so much of how his personality is based. But again, I'm not Kevin Durant. I haven't been 7 foot my whole life and could dribble like that and shoot.
Well,
like that. Again,
what's interesting about Durant is neither is he, because in high school he was a point guard. That's the crazy thing about Durant just as a player, and the reason why he has the handles that he has. In high school, he was a point guard, shooting guard, and that's why PJ Carlesimo, when he was on the Sonics, wanted to play him at the 2. Because he saw him as just a straight up pure scorer shooter, which is why everyone always just said that Kevin Durant was a better scorer than LeBron. And then we all remembered, oh, yeah, that's right. LeBron has the most points ever. So it's just different. But Kevin Durant, he's just such a good scorer, that it's incredible to watch. The only thing that I have left is just any LeBron Jordan stuff.
Yeah.
If we're making the list today, this is what needs to happen. And what everybody needs to realize is there is different phases of this list. There is the top 2 names. There is a steep drop off. Then it goes from about 3 till about probably 12, where it's like had some bounces gone some ways for these guys. Then maybe we could have broken that ceiling into the top 2 tier. And then there's everybody else historically. There just is. Then there's mortal human beings. But that top 2, that's what we have. We have the 2 GOATs of their times, the 2 GOATs of the sport. Bill Russell, though, is the GOAT of his era, and it's a fun. And then it was Kareem, and then obviously Jordan, and then LeBron, and still I would argue it's LeBron. It's tough. It's really tough. I can't wait to have this conversation the day after LeBron retires, so that we actually know what the ending to the book is before we do a review on the book.
And the criteria, I think, is important here, because when you're doing this list, impact has to come in on the game of basketball as a whole.
Right.
And I think how you change the sport has to matter. This isn't who would you rather have.
Right.
Okay. Because I think sometimes that debate gets boiled down to that question, which is
or like who is the better player, or who's more
the better
clutch player, or whatever.
It's not that. It's very different when you're looking at a career arc as opposed to who's the better basketball player. I mean, there's not really I don't think there's a question there. I think peak LeBron is the best we've seen. It's not who would you start your team with. I don't think there's an argument. I think everybody would pick LeBron.
Okay.
We're talking about, but when we're talking about a career arc as a whole, that's where it becomes different.
Yep.
And that's where it becomes tough to judge at this point. And I will argue that it is tough because of how great he has been so quickly.
Yeah.
It's how great he was so quickly and how great he has been his entire career, and the consistency by which he's played his whole career. So with him, with that debate, I think that it's something that I think we should have set out at the beginning. It's just the criteria for this list is so much different. And if you're talking about something else, like if you're talking about who would you want to start your team with, Wilt is like way low on this. Like Wilt is like almost off of this list. Not
Wilt's
off of
low, and then like basically all of the guys that they had on the list that were before black dudes were allowed to really play more than 15 minutes a game, and you weren't allowed to have more than one of them on a team, which, by the way, if you don't know about that shit, look it up. It's fucking wild, where the Celtics were like they were trailblazers in that they had more than one black guy on the team. And then the fact that they
played
had,
at home.
Yeah. And then, Bill Russell became the coach, and everyone's like, whoa, you have,
it was a big deal.
Yes, you basically erase all of those dudes just because genetically, hey, guess what? Genetically, we continue to get stronger and stronger as time goes on. And that's why LeBron, at the age that he's at, is still able to do the shit that he's doing. That's why Giannis is able to do all the stuff that he's doing. Meanwhile, you look back at what the game was in the 90s and 80s, you had dudes like Bill Laimbeer that were able to stop a lot of teams because that's just how human evolution works.
It is. Yeah. So it's a fun debate. It's one that I think has been done ad nauseum, and I think there's not more interesting, but there's other ones that I don't think has gotten a lot of play. Specifically, I think the point guard stuff that we did here is a little bit more interesting, something that's not dove into as much. I guess my parting question is, who are the three most likely of today's players to be on the next list? And I think that's relatively easy to do, but again, you're doing a lot of projections there. So
I would have to say, well, my bias is going to show a little bit, but obviously the first player that's going to come to mind that's going to be on the list for the 100, I would say Devin Booker will be on there.
Well, I should have made this like, who's going to be ranked the highest on the top 75? that's currently
You
playing.
mean the top 100?
That's not on the top 75 right now. Who will be ranked the highest?
Oh man, Zion? No, I'm kidding. I mean,
my wallet hurts so much.
If Doncic can find some teammates, I think he has. I mean, the stats that dude's putting up is already just incredible. I'm curious to see
second in defense this year.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he gets any better. Because like Shaq, he does not exercise, he does not diet. So I'm curious to see what his career looks like, because this just might be it, which by the way is still amazing. Like Luka's one of the best guys in the NBA. I honestly, that on the spot, I don't know, just because, I mean, of this generation, the greats are kind of already on the list, right? Because you got Giannis, you got Steph, you got Devin's coming, and Luka's there, Ja's there. Who are you thinking?
I really think Luka has the highest ceiling.
Okay,
because Ja, from what we know right now, again, we can only project based on what we got.
Right.
Ja's game isn't as complete as Luka's is right now.
And
it's just not.
And he's much more conducive to catastrophic injuries. The way that Ja plays, a lot like Derrick Rose, a lot like Dwayne Wade, the fact that Dwayne Wade never had like that one injury that everyone can point to and be like, and he was never the same since, is incredible. But
more like it was the compilation of injuries.
Yes, it was more that Heat run just sucked the life out of him. And that second finals against the Spurs, you could really see it. He just was not on the level. And because LeBron was still on the level that he had always been at, it was very stark to see. So I hope and pray that Ja Morant has a long and healthy career. We've already seen him get hurt. I don't think Trae Young is going to get to that level. I just don't. I mean, can you think of it? Who else are you thinking of? Because
it's just tough because you're also trying to project 25 years of draft picks that are going to come into the league.
Bronny James,
Bronny, right? Exactly. So of the people that are playing right now, I still think Luka has the highest ceiling.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens to Booker. Most of what happens to Booker, I think, will be determined in the next 2 years.
Yes, which is interesting because we're talking about a list that's going to have another 25 years. But if Devin goes on to win an MVP, if he goes to win a championship, and he goes on to have a long and great career that I am fingers crossed he has with Phoenix the entire time. Okay, now there's certain things that are percolating and beginning to build for his case. Because I mean, if guys like James Harden are going to make this list, that opens the door for a lot of guys that, as I believe, Brandon Ingram is holding his knee, so I'm hoping he's okay. That's Josh Hart, and he's up and running, so we're fine. But it's Brandon Ingram's another guy that at one point we thought could, but it just doesn't seem like he's that dude.
I think it'll be interesting because this group of players is so, I mean, every era I think thinks they're way different than the past. This era seems to be, while they're influenced by the past, they're really kind of shaking off the comparisons to past players in a way that is kind of unique. Because we saw the LeBron Wade generation, they were open to the comparisons to these past guys. And then the old guys got really fucking crotchety. And it became, and Booker's idol, he doesn't even want to be compared to. He's asked people to stop, even though the comparisons are there for anybody to see.
Yeah.
He has asked people to stop doing it.
Yeah.
It's interesting that there is very much a forge your own path mentality among the new guys. And hopefully we're still kicking in 25 years to talk about it.
Can I say that I hope it's Devin Booker? I'm hoping Devin Booker gets above Charles Barkley for the highest ranked quote unquote Suns player. That'd be really fun.
I hope he gets ahead of Nash and stays 95 to 100% of his career with us, to the point where it's like he belongs to us in a way that
he's the Sun,
because he encapsulates I think a lot of what you would want that person to be.
Well, and we specifically for a Phoenix Suns team, given the Phoenix culture and given who we've been this entire time. And we talked about this a lot around the finals last time, but just given that Devin Booker has a Hispanic background and really embraces a lot of what Phoenix's culture is, and in part now kind of drives what the Phoenix culture is very, I love it. I hope he stays as much as I can from out here in San Diego. And I hope he has a long career. The last thing that I want to mark, who's the biggest snub and why is it Dwight Howard?
The snub thing is tough for me, because once you get to the bottom of this list, that's where it gets weird. I mean,
once you really dig into it, you look for the guys that have their back to the rim, shall we say, and really are able to be the foundation from underneath of a defense. If Dwight Howard,
Harden over Dwight makes no sense.
Oh, Harden over Dwight. Oh.
I don't like Harden being in there right now.
And he's
just
50. And by the way, his reaction was one of the cooler reactions. They told him, and he goes, wait, of all time? Wait, me? Really?
Harden,
okay.
Look, again, this isn't who would you rather have. This isn't who is the better player. It is talking about your career as a whole. James Harden,
by the way, I'd probably still rather have Dwight Howard than James Harden, but go ahead.
James Harden, to my knowledge, first of all, he's never been in my view a top 5 player in the league. Dwight was for a couple seasons. He's never been the best player. Well, I guess there's been times where he's been the best two guard, but Dwight is the best center for a stretch run of about 8 years there. That's pretty unprecedented
for basically a decade.
Dwight made the finals as the best player on a team. Harden has one of the worst playoff track records.
And went through LeBron to get there. That's the weird thing. Is like
and played well in the finals. And Harden did not play well.
Very well. Like
Harden was a bench player on that team.
It's man, Dwight Howard, as much as we have been making fun of him ever since he got to the Lakers. Once he got to the Lakers, then the Rockets, and did that whole thing, then he was a punchline to all the jokes. But man, he was incredible in Orlando. And it's not like those teams were stacked. Like, it's not like Orlando had that much more talent than Cleveland did that year. Like, Dwight just played fucking awesome. Now, LeBron also played incredibly, but Orlando won and robbed us of the LeBron Kobe finals that everybody wanted to see.
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunately Dwight's the biggest snub because he's one of the most infuriating people on the planet. But he is the biggest snub. I think that there's some, if you go deep in the list, there's some guys that would bug me more than Harden, but Harden sticks out a lot to me.
Yeah, I mean,
because Harden, I said earlier that Wilt was Russell. Really, Harden is Wilt.
Yeah.
That's really what we're looking at. And Harden is Wilt without the playoff resume. So
yeah. And without the numbers.
The regular season, I'm not diminishing the regular season, but it's two separate things. And when you don't have any moment in the playoffs that I can point to, other than when he was a sixth man playing against the Spurs, when you just don't have that moment of being the best guy on a finals team, it's really hard for me.
I'm assuming you're talking about the Thunder.
That series where he just killed the Spurs. And
against the Spurs. Yes.
Yeah, but he's never been the best player on a finals team. To put him over Dwight in that context, I think is crazy to me. And it puts too much emphasis on MVPs. It puts too much emphasis on I think it's easier to score now than it ever has been. And I don't think that's being taken into consideration.
To put him over, I mean, even if we're just looking at the current guys that he's over, to put him over Clay in terms of, again, if you're talking about a story of the NBA, to put him over Clay, to put him over Draymond, to put him over Tracy McGrady, to put him over Vince Carter, to put him over Dikembe Mutombo, to put him over Alex English, to put him over Pau Gasol. Like, there is a list of guys that just aren't on the list that definitely should be if a James Harden is on the list, if a Russell Westbrook is on the list, if a Damian Lillard is on this list. There's just some guys that just don't belong. And I'm not being mean when I say that, because like Damian Lillard is still one of the best of his generation.
Yes.
Like Russell Westbrook
100%.
is an embarrassment to basketball. I am trying to actually be mean with him. And come on the pod, Russ. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. With that being said,
but that being said, he is
all due respect.
Yeah. With
in the
all
Mark Jackson voice.
Yeah. With all due respect, which is none, Russell Westbrook should not be on this list. He should not have been considered. It is embarrassing. Yeah, I'm going to write some angry letters to ESPN that he's on this list. And I think there should be an appeal and to the writers and people that voted for the top 75 list generally from the NBA. They should be embarrassed. There should be a committee. If we can get Congress,
someone should be arrested.
If we can get Congress to look at this with as much zeal as they looked at Spygate, that'd be great. If we can get some senators going on this is just as important, if not more important. And that's my take. That's my take.
I'm with you.
Because it's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing. It's fucking infuriating that guys that, again, can you tell the story of the 75 years of the NBA without Russell Westbrook? I would actively avoid speaking about the man. I wish I could. Now I can't. Because now he's on this fucking list. But beforehand, oh my God, I would, how you can go onto social media and mute certain words?
Oh yeah.
I would file a motion in limine to remove Russell Westbrook's name from any court proceedings in the case of the NBA's top 75. 100%. And my argument would be, Your Honor, he does not fit the criteria required to be named on this list in the words of Isaiah Thomas. He does not fit the criteria. The man cannot shoot. The man cannot dribble. The man cannot pass. The man cannot play defense. He is a point guard whose best ability is rebounding, meaning the one thing that I do not give a shit about my point guard doing, because I want him pushing the ball and I want him stopping the ball. I want him doing those two things. Rebounding gets in the way of that and is one of the many reasons why Russell Westbrook will always and forever be a black hole of basketball success, in that he will never, ever, 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 ever be on a championship winning team because he hurts basketball progress. And that's my take.
I personally don't think there's a better way to end than that.
I don't either, because it's the most atrocious part of this list. And on that note, everybody, real quick. I'd also like to give Russell Westbrook the Ted Cruz Award, because there just isn't another person on this list except for maybe Karl Malone or John Stockton. And again, look it up. Shout out to Philadelphia strip clubs, since we talked about James Harden for so long. Shout out to Utah just in general, which you really had the correct stars for your team and for your city. Shout out Kobe. I never thought I would be like nostalgically watching your videos in a positive way. Shout out dieting, because Shaq, you had a much higher ceiling. And just shout out the NBA, because it was a really cool event. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad they were able to get Jordan in the building for it. It was really cool to see Kareem there. And they put him right next to LeBron, so that was really cool. It was just well handled. The NBA is the best run league in America, I would argue. And yeah, it was a fun weekend, and a weekend that I had the bar hanging over my head. I was still able to enjoy those because it was just a well done production, except for the game show that Steph and Aisha put on. So yeah, thank you guys. Ted Cruz Award goes to Russell Westbrook for the person that I'd like to punch in the face. Anything else, Tim?
I think we covered it.
Awesome. They can find me at tfelix3412. They can find Tim at tleduc32, TLEDUC. No, that's not Tim LeDouche. It is Tim LeDuc. Thanks for listening, guys. We will be resuming with some other stuff coming up soon, but enjoy this pod while we post it. And thank you guys so much. Elvis Monroe. Oh, no. Ted Cruz. Please. Russell Westbrook, please. Karl Malone. John Stockton. Please. Go fuck yourself. Elvis Monroe, please. Play us out.
One day, someday, fiction girl. She's my one day, someday. She's my one day, someday. Gotta have her, gonna call her baby. One day, someday. She's gonna call me baby, gonna have a family. I can see it in her eyes. Our future's so bright. Gonna wake up by his side. One day, someday. She's my one day, someday. Fiction girl. She's my one day, someday.